Hello and welcome back to the CG Bros. This is Brother Damien, and this is part 2 of the session on creating a sophisticated Pirate's Flag cloth simulation using Blender. Now we left off in part 1 setting up some basic properties on our cloth, and had just activated self-collision on our cloth simulation. Let's go ahead and continue on. Now something I'd like to touch on briefly is about these layers. Now I have my flag mesh on layer 2, and my original mesh on layer 1. We can work on any layer we choose, and we can move things to different layers if we want. Just select the item and hit the M key, then select the layer you want to move it to. You can think of these layers like rooms, and only the things in the same room are aware of or can see each other. You might say, well, that's no good, why would they do that? Well, I use these layers as a quick and easy way to bring meshes, forces, particles, and other things in and out of my simulations. Sometimes I set up different combinations of forces and strength settings on different layers, and move my cloth meshes in and out as needed, and the layers thereby act as a master effects controller for the different effects in my shot. Now this really helps keep things organized and simple. And the key to creating effects quickly is keeping things simple, because keeping them simple keeps them in control. And control is the name of the game when it comes to creating effects that not only meet the client's expectations, but meet time and budget constraints as well. Now let's add some directional force to the flag's animation. And I'll do that by adding a wind field to our flag. So come up to the Add menu set, and down to Force Field, and select Wind. Now wind is a global force, so no matter where you place the icon on the view, the effect is going to be the same. So let's set the wind strength to 500, and introduce some randomness by setting the noise value to 3, and the flow to 10 to get a bit more motion and resimulate. Now the wind is blowing down the flag's axis, and we should start to see some of the self-collision working as the tatters come together here. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause it here and bake the sim out and come back when it's done. Alright, let's take a look. Now this is starting to really look nice. We're getting some nice rippling going on here, and look at the great detail we're getting here at the edges. Now the flag is feeling a bit light to me though, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust its weight or mass from 0.3 to 1. I also think this could use an additional force to add some more visual interest to the flag's motion by breaking up the first one a bit. Now come up to Add, Force Field, Wind. I'm going to go ahead and also move this over and up a bit. I'll also rotate it so that the direction of force is crossing across the flag rather than down its axis as the first field is doing. Now set the strength on this wind to 300 with a noise value of 5 and a flow of 6. Let's go ahead and see how this affects the flag's behavior. Let's go ahead and resimulate it. Now pause it and bake this out and come back when it's done. Okay, let's play it. Now this is looking a lot more natural, but I can see that by increasing the flag's mass, we'll need to kick up the strength on our first force a bit more. Now I'll select it and set it to 1000, and then resim this again. Now setting up believable simulations takes a lot of back and forth tweaking of forces and values. And by tweaking one, you'll often find that you have to tweak the others to obtain a good balance between them. So be patient and keep it simple. And by keeping it simple, I mean that you should be able to get 95% of the way there for most effects with 2 to 3 forces. Now don't go crazy, or you'll find yourself endlessly tweaking for days, and your boss will start looking for another effects artist. So I'll go ahead and pause it here and bake this out and come back when it's done. Okay. Now that looks fantastic. The flag has some nice weight, but not too heavy, and it's moving nicely with some complex motion in the body, flaps, and the tatters. Now I could start adjusting the gravity and other attributes here under the cloth field weights dropdown, but I'm not going to. I'm going to try to keep it simple, and I'm happy with this. So let's go ahead and work on the appearance a bit. Now you may have noticed some faceting or creasing on the flag mesh as it simulates. I'll take care of that now by adding a subdivision surface modifier to our flag by selecting the flag mesh and coming over to the navigator and over to the Object Modifier tab and to the Add Modifier pull down and selecting the Sub D surface modifier. Now you can instantly see the refinement of the mesh in the viewport. Now I'm going to set the subdivision level in the viewport to 2, maybe 3. 3 crashes some machines. 4, well, just save your file before trying it. But that looks pretty smooth now. Now let's set our rendering subdivisions to 3 as well, and render out our frame and see what we've got. Well, that's really looking great. I don't know about you, but I'm getting pretty excited. There's one more thing I might want to do. I might also want to add some thickness to my flag object. One way to do this is to add another object modifier to the mesh. The solidify modifier should do the trick for us. You can see that the mesh has gained some thickness, and this can be adjusted using the thickness attribute. I'll go ahead and set it to 0.02. Now, something important to keep in mind here is that the order that a modifier appears in the modifier panel, or stack as it's called in Max, can make a big difference on how a mesh is deformed. In this order, you can see that the thickness has been achieved through an extrusion operation after being subdivided by the subdivide modifier. If you want a smoother, more tapered appearance to your edges, you may want to subdivide the mesh after adding the solidify modifier. And we can easily reorder the modifiers by hitting these up and down arrows. Now I'll click on the up arrow of the solidify modifier to move it up. Now that the sub-D modifier is at the end, it smooths the result of the solidify modifier. And changing the order may also change the simulation as it changes the topology that the simulation is based on. Now, I find that simulating and baking the cache out first, then adding thickness for appearance works fastest and will be the best solution for most of the cloth sims that you might be doing. Now to bake out the simulation to cache, select the flag, go over to the Physics tab on the navigator, and enter the frame range for the cache. And hit the Bake button. To clear the cache out, hit the Free Bake button or the Free All Bakes button. And when your cache is done, you can scrub through your simulation in real time as it reads the cache data from the disk. And be sure to tweak your forces and mass settings for different and dramatic results. Then, throw in a light and render it out. And be sure to add some motion blur for ultra-realistic renders. Now I hope you enjoyed learning to create this flag simulation in Blender, and had some real fun in the process, because in the end, that's what computer graphics is really all about, right? We'll see you back here next time at the CG Bros.